physiotherapist. I work in North York, and I also have a location as well downtown Toronto, and we help people that are struggling with all kinds of painful conditions, and we also help seniors improve their endurance, their strength, and overcome the risk of fall. So I look forward learning more about you guys and learning more about some of the challenges that you're currently facing. And we have a lot of useful information and some practical tools that you can start to implement right away after this webinar to help when it comes to fall prevention.
All right, so yeah, good morning everyone. Welcome to our webinar series, Falls Prevention Deserves Your Attention. As Erin mentioned, my name is Cory, and I'll be co-hosting this morning with Alejandra. I'm looking forward to sharing a lot of very important information with you and learning a little bit more about each one of your individual challenges and struggles as well too. As Erin mentioned, this webinar is hosted and was created in partnership with by Vintage Fitness and Staying Active Rehabilitation. And we've done a little bit of a brief introduction for ourselves. I'd like you to know Erin, who is the owner of Vintage Fitness and a personal trainer, is helping us with the technical piece this morning. So you'll be hearing from Erin, you'll hear Erin's voice. She'll be helping you with the chat as well too, and with any of the questions and polls that are going out. So I welcome Erin. You've already met Alejandra. So Alejandra is a physiotherapist at Staying Active Rehabilitation. And myself, I may be a familiar face to some of the people that are attending this morning as their personal trainer through Vintage Fitness. But I am a personal trainer and also an occupational and physiotherapist assistant as well too. So this morning, we'd like to get started right away. But what we'd like to do is actually ask you a little bit about yourselves. I'm going to let Alejandra speak to that for a moment.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so this is going to be as well a 4-week journey in which we're looking to really make a change for those that are struggling with fall or have fallen or are at a higher risk of fall. So some of you might be at different points in this journey. Some of you may be excited to be here. You want to learn, you want to implement. That's great. Others, you might be somewhere further in this journey. Maybe you're struggling with a chronic condition. Maybe you've fallen a few times. You've tried several things and it hasn't worked for you, and now you're feeling demotivated. You're grieving the loss of your independence. Perhaps a doctor or a health professional has told you that this is a permanent issue, that there's not much that you can do. And if you are in this place, and I really want to emphasize that we hear this a lot, we see you, we hear you, and we're here for you, and we're looking to do this as a community. We're looking to support you, we're looking to learn more about you, and really truly arm you with the tools that you need so that you can start to see some positive changes. Start to break that cycle of fall that Cory is going to talk about later on today. So, and also I want to say that at the end of today's webinar, if you stay until the end, we do have something for you. We do have something of value to offer you that you can take advantage. So for now, like I said, we want to learn more about you. So we want to know, what are some of your biggest challenges right now when it comes to fall? Have you had a fall recently? Are you afraid of falling? Are you struggling with a chronic condition? So let us know what is your story.
We're going to take a few moments to let you enter some of those into our chat. And then Erin will actually summarize a few of those, and we can discuss them briefly before we carry on.
Mm-hmm.
So Erin, you can let us know when you've received a few stories. And also, I believe there's a poll out as well too for participants.
How many of you are afraid of falling?
So where we are with the poll right now, we have 16 of 29 people have answered, and afraid of falling comes up the highest. 71% of the group that I'm currently getting are afraid of falling. 18% have had a fall recently, and then leg and ankle strength is currently weak for 35% of the people. It looks like the exercises and improving balance are the two things that are the what people are hoping to get out of the webinar. In terms of coming up on the chat, there's one person that's a caregiver for several relatives that are at risk of falls, and then uneven sidewalks are someone's nemesis. So those are the things coming up so far.
So we're already starting to hit some of we'll be talking about risk factors a little bit on in the webinar, but we're already having people starting to identify some of the risk factors that are out there as well too. It would be interesting to know, for those of you that are afraid of falling, I believe someone mentioned they've already fallen. We'll take a look at the falls risk a little bit later on in the webinar and talk about how having one fall can actually impact subsequent falls as well too.
And fear is an interesting thing, because fear can be, it can either be a catalyst for change, or it can result in the opposite. So sometimes when people, of course, they have falls or multiple falls, there are many people that, because they become afraid of movement and exercising, they stop themselves. They limit themselves from moving forward, from overcoming that barrier. And with that, they get caught into this cycle of pain, this cycle of falls that Cory is going to talk about more later today. On the other hand, you can also choose to take that fear and use it as a catalyst for change, right? Use it as a motivator to learn, to educate yourself, to acquire the tools, to start to implement, because that is going to make a huge difference in getting you into that cycle, moving forward, getting better, building up a stronger foundation that's going to help you decrease the risk of falls. So,
okay. So we're gonna carry on with the webinar. Feel free, if you have any other ideas that pop into your head as we go, feel free to send them in the chat. Erin's going to be keeping track of those and can bring them up at any time during the webinar, especially if it's relevant to a particular area that we're focusing on. So what to expect over the next 4 weeks? Each one of the webinars is going to have some time for discussion. So we'll be talking about different topics. We're hearing what's most important to you is some sort of activity. So some sort of exercise, some sort of activity or idea that can help you in reducing your falls risks or manage situations that you might be in currently. And then of course, we'll be fielding all of the questions that you have during the webinar as well too. So if we don't know the answer to a question that you have during the webinar, we'll try our hardest to research and answer it for you the next time we see you the following week. So in week 1 today, we're actually just going to be doing a high-level overview, and we'll be talking a little bit about false facts. Week 2, we'll be talking about chronic conditions. Week 3, we'll be talking about impairments and behavior. And week 4, we'll be reviewing environmental factors that may impact your risk for falls. So just another quick little activity for you, and feel free to enter in some answers into the chat. We'd like to know what do all of these people have in common. First of all, if you want to supply their names, that would be great. So you recognize any of these people, and let's try to guess what they have in common. We'll give a few moments for that to come in via chat, and perhaps Erin can share some of the names as they come in. So 5 people from various backgrounds, various ages, different genders.
So we have a couple. One is they're famous. One suggesting it's arthritis and age factor.
Okay. All right. So just to carry on, we have Nancy Reagan and Pope Benedict XVI. We have Fidel Castro, we have Paula Abdul, and of course we have the Queen Mother. And what do they all have in common? Well, believe it or not, all of these people have had serious falls, and they've actually resulted in broken arms, broken hips, concussions, head injuries. So a fall can have devastating consequences and significantly affect one's quality of life. And it doesn't necessarily, as we're going to talk about later, matter how old you are. They can happen at any point in time in your life. Okay. So in today's session, we'll take a look at some of the reasons that people fall. We'll be taking a look at risk factors. We'll also be reviewing some falls facts. So some of these are going to be specific to New York region, but will end up actually being relevant to the general population as well. I mentioned before that every webinar is going to have an activity component. So for today's activity, Alejandra is actually going to be giving you some instructions on how to complete some assessments at home to determine your own status of balance. So that's our activity for this afternoon. You'll actually be getting a little bit of homework towards the end of the session to complete for next week.
It's going to be both a bit of assessment and treatment moving forward. So.
Okay, so why do people fall? We've been talking about risk factors. So people fall for a variety of reasons. And it might be useful to think of these from the point of perspective of playing Jenga. So if you're not familiar with the game Jenga, it's where you stack a number of different blocks. So you start off with a very stable tower. That's not very, it's somewhat difficult to topple over. But as the game goes on, you start removing blocks, and the Jenga tower actually becomes less and less stable. So if you played this just on your own, or if you played it with children or grandchildren, as you take out the blocks, you'll notice, as I mentioned, it becomes less and less stable. Think of these blocks as risk factors. So every risk factor that you have and that you remove from your tower makes you less and less stable. So think of yourself as that tower. So what the intent of these webinars is to show you how to identify those risk factors and actually try to mitigate them or minimize them so that you don't have to remove them from your tower. You don't have to remove them and from yourself, and keep yourself stable. So there's been a lot of research done since the early 1990s to identify what risk factors are. And you can take a moment to think about your own story that you talked about earlier. And you may have identified some of them from your own personal experience. So for instance, somebody mentioned cracked sidewalks. That's an environmental risk factor that we'll be talking about in the subsequent webinar. But risk factors can actually be due to a number of different things, but they're usually grouped under the umbrellas of chronic conditions, impairments in behavior, and the environment. So in week 2, we'll actually be talking about some specific chronic conditions that may put you at a higher risk of falls. So those Jenga blocks that come out, maybe because you have Parkinson's, or you may have Alzheimer's, or you may have multiple sclerosis, or hypertension. Those are all types of chronic conditions that you may have, that you may be living with, that put you at a higher risk for falls. You may have also some impairments in behavior issues. So these could be perhaps you're feeling weak at times, or you have stiff joints, or you have vision loss or hearing loss. Those are all examples of impairments that could put you at a higher risk of falls. And you can also have some behavioral issues as well too, which range from perhaps substance abuse, or even just rushing to get places. Those would all be examples of impairments in behavior, and things we'll be talking about more in detail on week 3. And if you have any specific chronic conditions or impairments that you feel are putting you at a higher risk for falls, feel free to shoot those forward in the chat as well too, so we can make sure to talk about those going forward. The environment. So we talked about broken sidewalks, for instance. That's another risk factor that's important. And these can be inside the home, outside the home, or in the community. So things that we'll be discussing in week 4. So let's get into some falls facts. And they're not meant to frighten you, but instead they're meant to provide you with an understanding of how important it is to acknowledge that falls are a real risk to society. So the falls facts that you're seeing in front of you are actually taken from the York Region website. And you'll see that the number of falls has increased significantly from 2007 to 2017. And that was the last year that the study was completed. But these numbers are all still relevant for 2020. So falls, which can threaten senior safety and independence, are the leading cause of fatal and non-fatal injuries among older adults in the York region. Okay, and we can extrapolate that out actually to the greater Toronto area, as well as Canada-wide. Okay. So falls are the leading cause of injury for seniors. So every 30 minutes, one senior is admitted to hospital due to a fall. So fall-related admissions to hospitals are the leading cause of injury admissions for those who are over 65. And every year, 1 in 3 adults falls. So if we consider the number of participants that signed up for the webinar, which was approximately 50, we can estimate that statistically about 17 of you could or have already fallen at least once during this year. And like I said, perhaps it's already happened to you and that's why you're here, or you're worried that it's going to happen to you and that's why you're here. And with respect to injuries caused during a fall, we see that 90% of hip fractures are due to a fall. So that's one of the more serious injuries that you can get from the fall, and typically one that will land you in the hospital or in a rehab center and potentially actually even in a nursing home afterwards. Some of the other more serious injuries can include head injuries, fractures, lacerations. Those are all the things that would typically land you in the emergency department or the hospital. But you can also have a fall and have some minor injuries, such as bruises or sprains or strains, which typically people don't even seek medical attention for. So the fall statistics actually may not even be as high as they could be if the number of falls that weren't reported were reported. So falls are the major cause of fatal injuries for those aged 75 and over. And over 40% of nursing home admissions are falls related. So again, these statistics aren't meant to frighten you because there is light at the end of the tunnel. That's why Alejandra and I are here for you today to discuss some ways that you can mitigate your risk factors and make sure you don't end up in the ER department. And it might actually be surprising for you to hear that falls are not really a normal part of aging. So if you reach 70, if you reach 80, if you reach 90, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a fall. It's not because of a particular age that you reach. It's actually because of the conditions that you have or that may develop with that age. So all of those risk factors that we talked about earlier. And a lot of those risk factors can happen at any age, young or old. And some of these things, of course, we'll be addressing in later sessions. Like I mentioned, the muscle weakness, loss of coordination, loss of vision, proprioception issues, all be things that we can consider in future sessions. The second point is rather interesting. So if you fall once, you're twice as likely to fall again. And that can be explained by looking at the fall cycle. And Alejandra talked about this earlier on in the webinar. And many of you actually may already be trapped or feel trapped in this cycle if you already had a fall once. So this is an explanation of the fall cycle. So you may go out, you may be fairly active or inactive, and you have a fall. How does that make you feel? And feel free to share some of your emotions that you feel in our chat as we go ahead. Aaron can share some of those with us. But you have a fall, consider how it makes you feel. Typically our confidence gets shaken. So outside of any physical injuries that we may have, you may actually be emotionally stressed or mentally stressed because of it. Confidence is shaken. You may fall into a depression. And typically what happens then is you stop functioning at your normal level. You stop going out and doing things that you enjoy. So you may stop going to see the grandchildren. You may stop going out for walks now because you're worried about the crooked sidewalk. All of those things that you enjoyed doing before, you now stop doing, which actually then makes us even more sedentary. We're not getting up, we're not moving around. It actually increases our muscle loss. We start to lose strength. We start to lose range of motion through our joints. We start to lose flexibility. We start to lose coordination and stability, all because we're so scared now of getting up and moving around. So it ends up being a pretty vicious cycle, because when you do actually have to get up and move around and go out and do something, you don't have the strength there anymore to catch yourself if you trip. And you end up falling again. And then the cycle just continues. So I'd like to share just a quick video with you this morning. This is Dr. John Baker. He's a physiotherapist and a geriatric clinical specialist at the Baker Rehab Group in Maryland. And he summarizes some of the physical and emotional impacts that a fall has. And he also talks a little bit about this fall cycle. So I'm just going to share that with you now. And Erin, please let me know if the volume is satisfactory or too loud.
Apart from the embarrassment and feeling clumsy, right, why do people try to not sort of tell people that they've fallen?
Because of the potential implications.
Which would be?
Well, lack of independence. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe if I pursue this a little farther, maybe there's going to be something else wrong with me. And so there's a lot of questions, and you're not quite sure of your answers, and so it gives you reservations. As Dr. Larson was saying, it is real important to report a fall, because actually the research shows that when someone does fess up, is actually you have usually had a history of falling, and there is usually an issue there before they actually are willing to say they've had a fall.
John, what else can happen physically and functionally to someone who's had a fall?
Well, unfortunately, what you a lot of times see is a downward spiral. Because someone who has fallen, they therefore get scared. Their world becomes smaller and smaller as they get concerned about, can I go out for a walk? You're today outside. It was a beautiful day. I was spending a little time and I went for a little walk. It was beautiful, sun shining on a hill. That little thing that I just did before I walked in the studio, someone who has a risk of fall, a lot of times they don't do that for fear. And so their world becomes smaller and smaller and smaller until it gets confined to their bathroom, walking to their bedroom, walking to their kitchen. And that becomes their world.
And that's a fairly serious, that has a serious impact on their health, doesn't it?
Well, where would their endurance be if that is their limitation of 5 to 10 feet? Their strength level obviously becomes very limited. A lot of times when you're at risk of falling, you're using assistive devices. Assistive devices, if you need them, can be great. But if you don't use it, you lose it. A lot of times those assistive devices create other issues that can become problems also. All these things can be a factor in their falls.
So that was a good summary of the fall cycle and how you might feel if you've had a fall, how your world starts getting smaller and smaller. And at the beginning of the webinar, Alejandra mentioned a fall can make you enter into this cycle, this fall cycle, but it can also be a catalyst for change. And we're hoping that's the reason why you're here today, is that you're ready for that change. And it doesn't mean that you have to become an Olympic athlete, or you have to become a triathlete, or you're going to train really, really hard. There are some simple things that you can do every day, every week, that can help you retrain yourself, retrain your body to become better at balance. And just to give you an example, I taught a 12-week falls prevention class. So we met twice a week for 12 weeks for an hour at a time. And it included education such as this, But it also included activity. So a lot of lower body strengthening and a lot of work on exercises to help you improve balance. And I had one participant who had fallen, who had suffered a multiple number of fractures. She was in the healing process, but she was still very shaky even with an assistive device. So she used a walker to get around. And she actually felt so insecure coming to the classes that she had a caregiver attend with her. By the end of the 12 weeks, and again, she was doing this twice a week for 12 weeks, she came up to me after the class and she wanted to show me something. She was able to walk without her walker, but with her caregiver around the perimeter of our classroom, without issue. And so she was incredibly happy with her performance. So that's always a highlight for me, that somebody that came in that situation, in that condition, was able to, with a little bit of hard work, able to turn that around and use it for a catalyst for change. So that was pretty amazing, and that's what we're hoping to do for people today in the webinar as well too. So I'd like to open it up. I've done a lot of talking. Sorry, I like talking, as some of my clients know. Alejandra, if you have anything to add, that would be great. We're going to open it up to any specific questions that people might have. So feel free to enter those questions into the chat. And Aaron, our techie guru, is going to summarize some of the questions that come in through the chat. So we'll give you a few moments to do that. And then what we would like to do is focus on your homework. So the activity portion of the webinar, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be some activities that you can do at home to assess your own balance. And
yeah, and Cory, I like to say I really like that video of Dr. Baker, because I think him, you know, as well as you, make such a good point on the way how you summarize information, and really truly talking about how it's so easy to get caught in that downward spiral where people feel demotivated, and it really truly starts with that mindset piece, where something happens and people feel demotivated and depressed, and they do less and then less, and because they are not activating their bodies, they're not engaging their bodies, then, you know, all kinds of chronic conditions can start to play out, like whether there is arthritis or stiffness, joint pain, and really truly what we want to do is help you start to move on that spiral, moving upwards, where really like the foundation is about understanding that change is possible, that our bodies are a machine that needs movement, that if we start to practice daily, continuously, a lot of people I find often they have this all or nothing mentality, and that really plays against them. If they really look instead to every day do a little bit and keep going, that is going to start to create a stronger foundation with them to start to implement more techniques, more habits, to feel better about themselves, to want to do more, to see their strength, their flexibility improving, and so forth. So,
Alejandra, can I just interrupt you and ask you a few questions that are coming up?
Sure.
So the first one is, does having dementia increase your risk for falls?
Yes, it can, and it depends on also how advanced the dementia is. But what we also know, and again, there's a whole other field of studies right now when it comes to dementia. And before, we used to think that dementia was that you couldn't do much about it, that it was progressive. And now there's a lot of studies that are saying there's so much that can be done to help to stop the progression of dementia, especially at the beginning stages, or to slow it down. And one of them, it has a lot to do with exercise. Exercise is the number one. Getting that physical, getting that movement, that activity is going to help with the serotonin, with the endorphins of the brain, with the chemistry of the brain, and then of course nutrition, good sleep, healthy relationships, getting sunlight. Those are all things that, you know, we can do. Somebody who is going through dementia or are starting to experience dementia, they can do to really truly help themselves.
Okay, thank you.
And even
go ahead, Cory.
just to add, even outside of the actual condition, there are extrinsic factors that you can consider as well too to reduce your risk. So that's in week 4, we're going to talk about environmental factors. So you may be at a particular level of dementia, but there are things that you can do around your home to mitigate risk and make things safer for you. So we'll be talking about some of those in week 4.
Yeah, in week 4 we should talk about dementia, and then a few things have come up about Parkinson's as well. So maybe I'll note that for us to cover specifically in week 4. The other question, and I'll start with Alejandra with you. Do you recommend that seniors retrofit their home to help manage risk? Are seniors safer in one-level apartments?
In terms of safety, you can and then again it depends, because there's also all kinds of assistive devices right now. So in terms of safety, I would say you could say it could be safer in one floor. But then also on the other hand, you know, for example, going up and downstairs, or having a place where, you know, where you can move more, can also help you stay fitter as well, because you're getting more exercise, you're moving more. So I would really, with that question, I would really also like to know what is the current state of that person, and what is that person's habits, daily habits, what are they doing right now, because that's gonna let me know if, you know, they're in the right track, or if there's something, or if there's more strategies and more implementation that needs to happen, so that they see improvement moving forward.
That's great, thank you. Those are the questions so far.
Excellent. All right. So feel free, we're going to go on with the webinar. Feel free to ask additional questions if they pop in your head via chat. And we'll summarize those at the end, even outside the webinar, to make sure that we try to address them in subsequent broadcasts. Alejandra, if you're ready now, I think we can go on to the balance tests and talk about some of the homework that we'd like people to do this week.
Yeah, I'm ready. Are you ready? Because you're going to be doing it.
I think I'm ready.
I have the easy piece. I'm going to be walking you through it, but Cory's actually going to demonstrate them and do them for us. Okay. So we're going to run you through 4 different balance tests. And these are accurate. They're very simple tests. You can do them at home, and they're very accurate in terms of determining if you're a higher risk of fall, right? So if you're a higher risk of falls, then these are tests that you want to do daily, start to implement daily for the next few weeks until, you know, you are able to meet some of the guidelines that we'll talk about, because that's going to help to reduce that risk of fall. So, an important disclaimer is around safety, right? Because we're not able to see you one-to-one and to assess you one-to-one. So usually when I have a patient and are coming into the clinic, of course, we're doing this test with them. So we are able to monitor how their balance is, and then provide safety measures accordingly. But because you're at home, I want to say that if you are feeling afraid of falling, or if you've fallen in the past, then please have somebody with you while you're doing this test, somebody to spot you. I see that there's a lot of caregivers today, so that is great. You can, you can teach these exercises to that person and do them together with them, and, you know, provide them with the safety and the balance. Sorry, provide them with the safety and the support, so that you're able to spot them if they lose their balance. So we're going to ensure safety first, always. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get into the activities. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can focus on Alejandra's instructions as well as me trying to perform some of the instructions. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a moment. All right.
So for this
So it's always also handy to have a sturdy chair around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, I'm all yours.
So for this test, right, we were talking about safety before. So there's two ways that's possible to do this to ensure safety. So the first one is to have somebody next to that person on the side with their hands open, right? So the person is in between them so that if they lose their balance or so forth, you can catch them. Another one is also, another suggestion also is to do this exercise in the corner where two walls meet. So right in the corner of your walls in a room, so that if that person feels like they're losing their balance, then they have the two walls next to them to support themselves, just like Cory is demonstrating right now. Excellent. And then what you're going to do is you're going to bring your hands by your side, relax, hands by the side, and the feet are going to be together, at least shoulder width apart. If together it's really difficult to maintain balance, then try with your feet shoulder width apart, but otherwise, if possible, together. And then you're just going to stand in this position and count to 30 seconds and see if you can maintain your balance for 30 seconds. Okay, if that is possible, then that's good. Means your balance is it's fair. The next step to this exercise is to do the exact same exercise, and this time with eyes closed. So you're gonna stand feet together, hands relaxed by the side, and you're gonna time yourself for 30 seconds with the eyes closed. Okay, and if you're able to hold your balance for 30 seconds, then that is great. If you want to take it up a notch, what you can also try for the next one is to take a pillow or to take a cushion of a couch or a sofa and place it on your feet. So this time, because we are knocking down the feet, there's less information coming from the periphery, the feet and the ankles, and the eyes are closed, then that means we're stressing more the vestibular system. So that is our inner ear, which helps us to maintain balance. So again, you mark yourself for 30 seconds. If you feel uneven or unsupported, or you're able to hold your balance during this test, then it means we have to do a little bit more work on strengthening that vestibular system or the inner ear. Okay? Great. Thanks, Cory. Okay, so the next test, whoops, just give me a moment here. Let me look for my slide. Okay, so the next test is the sit to stand test. Okay, and for this test, so just like the name says, Cory is going to have a seat, and this is to test your endurance, and it tests your strength and also some flexibility as well. So this is the goal is to get to 5 sitting to standing for 10 seconds. So Cory's going to move from sitting to standing 5 times. Good. And that was 5. Oops. Okay. So if you're able to do that in 10 seconds or less, then that means you're at a much lower chance of fall. If you're not able to do that one at 10 seconds or less, then you might be at a slight higher risk of fall. So if that's the case, you want to do this, practice this exercise daily for the next 3 to 4 weeks until you're able to meet those guidelines, until you're able to get to 5 times sitting to standings in less than 10 seconds. Okay.
And just to add a safety precaution to that one as well too. If you're worried, if you're doing a sit to stand and you're worried that the chair, you're on a slippery surface, for instance, and you're concerned the chair is going to slip out from underneath you, you can put the chair against a solid object, so against another piece of furniture or against a wall, so that you're not worried that the chair is going to come out from underneath you.
Yeah, good point. Great suggestion, Cory. And the third test is called the time up and go test. So for this one, you're going to start in sitting. Okay. Oh, the first thing, you're going to place a mark about 3 meters away from your chair. So you can place a mark on the floor that signifies about 3 meters away from your chair.
I've done that already. I've got a green piece of tape marked on my floor that's 3 meters from the front of the legs of my chair. So I've got a nice clear pathway.
Okay, excellent. So, and then what you're going to do for this test, so you're going to stand up and then you're going to walk to the marker, and then Cory is going to walk past the marker and then he's going to come back and he's going to sit down again. And the ideal completion of this test again is 10 seconds or less. Good. So if you're able to complete that test in 10 seconds or less, then you are at a lower risk of fall. If not, then if it takes 10 seconds or more, then again, this is a test that you would want to do regularly for the next few weeks until you're able to hit that guideline. Right? And now the last test, number 4. So this is actually walking safely for 10 meters for 10 seconds. So we're not going to do this one right now, but in your, whether it's on your home or outside, just try to find a place where you can walk 10 seconds where there's no objects in between, and 10 meters. With no objects in between, where you can walk for about 10 seconds, and see if you can do 10 meters in 10 seconds. If you are unable to, then once again, that's your homework. This is something that you want to practice daily until you're able to meet that target. So those are the balance tests for today. We're also gonna send you an email with them. You'll have them in writing so that you can review them. And if you have any questions, let us know. Are there any questions, Erin, about those tests? Any comments?
Nope. No questions. That everyone seems to be able to see and hear okay, which is great. And then one of the participants just commented about fear of falling and not realizing that it's impacting how she lives her life because she's afraid of fearing. So just she appreciated us making that
comment. It's significant. It's really important for people to understand, because a lot of the times that fear is going to dictate what we do. So that's what we were saying before. If it's totally okay to have fear. We all do. We understand why, but just become aware of it. Become that is limiting you right now, and just use it as a catalyst for change. Just to get the information, to practice the skills, and you will start to see results. You will start to progress.
And then I'm just going to, we've had Saya raise her hand a few times. I'm just going to allow her to talk and ask any question that she has. So Satya, just I'm going to allow you to talk for a minute here to ask your question. Oh, just increase your volume a bit.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Hi.
We can hear you.
I have been going to, it's a great presentation. I have a question which is giving for last couple of weeks or maybe more. I'm going through a very bad sciatica pain. And I don't know how to handle this because of the lockdown, but I have fallen few times over the last 4 or 5 years. And I keep getting this every few years and it lasts for 2-3 months sometimes. Anything you can suggest that I can do to relieve? Because in between then also vertigo comes in. So any suggestions?
And that is for a lot of, and thank you for asking that question, because for a lot of people, painful conditions, right, can be a huge limiting factor in their mobility, in their balance. So when that happens, one of the things that we want to do is to start to incorporate movement in that is not going to aggravate the pain, that's going to feel gentle. So light movements, light motions, light stretching, and what to start to get those muscles to loosen up again, to start to get those muscles mobile again. One of the worst things that you can do when there's pain is to avoid movement, or to freeze, or to avoid movement for long periods of time. Of course, you're not going to be able to do many things. They're going to feel painful right now, especially heavy movements, things like bending, lifting. Those things are contraindicated right now, but gentle walking, light mobility exercises, those are things that are going to start to loosen up some of the muscles. But we do have something for you at the end. If you stay, a suggestion at the end that that you can take advantage of to get some more information. So we'll talk about that in a bit.
If I can,
yeah.
If I can say something, that I am otherwise being a very active person.
Yes.
Because I belong to senior clubs and I'm on the board too.
Yeah.
And I have been doing daily exercises until this thing hit me so badly.
Yeah.
That, I try to do, we have the Zoom exercises from the club, but I try to do chair yoga or something, but it's so painful that I thought maybe you can suggest me something better that will bring my activity back to me.
Yeah, and that's what we do as physiotherapists.
I will definitely stay back. I will definitely stay till end. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and that's what we do as physiotherapists every day, all day. We help with those, with those conditions, because working on those tissues, having somebody worked on those tissues manually with modalities, getting things loosened up, getting the muscles to open up again, is immediately going to help to regain that exercise, because there's inflammation and there's tension, so your body's doing this. So once we there's so many ways, so many modalities to get the muscles loosened up again, then the mobility becomes easier again. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And great question, Satya, because it happens to so many people. You're really not the only one. There's so many people struggling with all kinds of back pain, chronic conditions right now. Yeah.
I don't know if we have one more. I have another question from Barbara. I guess we have a time for one more question, guys?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
we
so
got
Barbara,
it.
I'm just gonna put your mic on so you can ask your question.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Oh, Barbara, you unmute. You need to unmute yourself.
Okay.
You're mute again. Yeah, you need to unmute yourself.
I can do it from this side, Barbara. Just give me a sec. Oh, it doesn't seem to be working. Barbara, if you want to put your question in the chat, we'll come to it at the end, and we can get you unmuted before then. So if you guys want to continue on, we'll pick Barbara's question back up.
Okay.
I just wanted to reiterate what Alejandra was saying earlier with when we were doing the tests or giving you the tests for homework. If you can attempt these tests successfully, then that's great. You're doing all the right things. Keep up the good work.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you are struggling to complete the tests because of physical conditions, or you're feeling unsafe, or you're feeling fearful, that's sort of where we step in. And I'd like to actually invite Erin to talk about how we're able to help you, both Alejandra and Vintage. So Stay Active Rehabilitation can help you with that.
Yeah.
And also as well for the caregivers, because I saw that there's a few caregivers in the chat that are here to get information to help their loved ones. So, you know, definitely Erin is going to send out the replay. So watch this replay with them, talk to them about it. And you know, and start to engage them, because people, we are creatures that we need to move. We want to move. We want to feel good. So yeah.
So I do have Barbara back. So maybe I'll have Barbara, you ask your question first, and then I'll talk a bit about our program.
Sure.
Thank you for having me. I just wondered if you could tell me if you have Stay Active Vintage Fitness in Durham region.
So we do have it in Durham, and we also are fully virtual. Our COVID has forced us into an extreme learning curve where we're becoming experts on training clients virtually. Cory, I don't know if you want to mention anything about some of the virtual stuff in Durham.
Yes. Well, Erin was just mentioning, we've sort of had to pivot really quickly with COVID. So we were doing one-on-one sessions. So we have instructors all over the GTA. But of course, with training virtually, it doesn't matter where we live or where our clients live. We can meet them over the internet. So we're offering 45-minute sessions virtually, where we set up the technology. We make sure that you're in a good position where we can see you, you can see us. We make sure that you're safe working virtually, and we can follow that mode. We can also try to set you up with an instructor close to the Durham region. If that's not myself, somebody else that's qualified, if you're more comfortable with a one-on-one session. They're typically 1 hour in length, but like I mentioned, the virtual sessions actually work quite well if you can arrange for that. So.
Yeah, and for us as well at Stay Active, also during this time of COVID, we moved all of our sessions on an online platform. So we've really been out there empowering people through the sessions, you know, walking them through what needs to happen, what they need to do, how they need to move, how they need to treat themselves while they're at home in their environment, so that they do see changes and they do see results. And the goal with every virtual session is that by the end of the session, that person will experience pain relieved and, you know, compare the same or compatible to what they would have experienced if they were coming into the clinic. So yeah.
I do have one more question, if I may.
Yes, of course.
So do you have the costs of these sessions? Are you able to send that out by email or however you send it, and what insurance companies will cover these sessions?
Yeah. So yes, so we have, in terms of insurance coverage, we pretty much work with all insurances right now. We're covered by, I think, almost all insurances. And during COVID as well, most insurance companies, they came out and they've approved virtual sessions, virtual physiotherapy session because of the need. And I'm going to let as well Erin talk a little bit about the consultations and also the package right now.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
So we are as a part. So again, this is a free webinar series. There's 4 sessions. This is the first of 4. If you have friends that couldn't make this one, but you think that would be helpful, they can come to 1. They can come to 2. Like you can jump in any place. So you don't necessarily have to start at the beginning and go all the way through. We are offering a program that through Staying Active Rehab. So Alejandra is the physiotherapist. Cory and I are the personal trainers. So we do slightly different jobs. We're really excited about it. It's an 8-week fall risk program. And it starts with Alejandra meeting you either virtually or in one of her clinics. She's got 2, one in North York and one downtown, to do an assessment of your falls, create a fall prevention program tailored to you. Cory then takes you through for 6 weeks, step by step, over Zoom, through the exercises, and then you go back to Alejandra and she reassesses. And we really want to see a reduction in fall risk. So I'm going to send an email after this with a link. If anyone's interested in that, you could take advantage of that. The only other thing I'll mention is one person was talking a bit about, can you show us how to get off the floor if we fall? And I think I'm going to put the note to do a demonstration of that in the environment session, Cory.
Yep.
So we'll have to remember. Thank you, Pat. That's a great suggestion.
For sure.
And yeah, and something else also with the free consultation is that we want to know more about you. We want to know what are your challenges right now, what you're experiencing. And that's also the point as well of the free consultation, is to get to know you, understand where you are right now, and give you recommendations, tools, suggestions that you can, so that you can start to think about what needs to happen, what could happen to make that progress and those changes, because change is possible. And I mean, if I can take just a minute to let you know some of the cases that we've had, like, because we do live in a society, I feel, that where there's this misconception that as we get older, things like fall, pain, and decreased lifestyles and are going to go down, that those things are going to be affected, that we're going to lose those things. And that is so not true. Everything comes down to what you're doing, what are your daily habits. I have patients that, I have a 73 years old patient who is climbing Machu Picchu up and down. I had another patient who is 93 years old, and she was playing tennis until she was 91. And the only reason why she stopped is because all of her friends or everybody that she used to play with, they all stopped playing, and she was the only one. So I was trying to get her to, find a younger group of people to continue. But what I can tell you about those people is that what they're doing is very different than than others. Those people, they're able to stay that active and to stay healthy and to go out and meet their friends and live an active lifestyle because they are taking care of their bodies. They are getting out there. They are learning about health. They're overcoming health challenges. They're motivating themselves. They're moving themselves forward. So that is really, truly what we want for you. We understand that it is difficult when you're alone because we get caught in that negative mindset sometimes, and it can be really difficult to see the light. So that's why we're doing this as a community. you know, with the support of me and Cory to really, truly help, you know, guide you, give you the tools and encourage you to, you know, that yes, this is possible for you as well, and your loved ones, for those that are here as caregivers. So.
That's great. So it's about 11 o'clock now. Cory, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I just wanted to mention that so attitude is a big component when tackling falls prevention and entering into a new fitness regimen. So you've all sort of taken the first step. If you're not already in a fitness regimen or falls prevention program, you've taken this first step of attending a webinar, so that's great. Just remember, we're looking to break that falls cycle, and you've got this, and we're here to help you. So.
Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. And just remind participants what the topic is for next Wednesday at 10 o'clock.
So next Wednesday, we'd like to touch on chronic conditions. So if you have anything specific that you'd like us to address, so things that you're living with, like if you're living with Parkinson's or multiple sclerosis, hypertension, even things that you feel are impacting your falls risk, then those are the things that we'd like to touch on specifically. Yeah.
And if you are also struggling with a chronic conditions, like Satya was saying, you know, her chronic back pain, or anything that's limiting, then, you know, you can also by all means request that consultation, and we can connect, and I can walk you through that as well.
That's great. Well, listen, thank you to everyone. I have recorded this. I'll send out an email with the recording and a link if you want to book a consultation with us and learn more about our fall prevention program. But I will see you. Invite your friends for next week, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 10 o'clock.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everybody, for attending.